The lights shatter across Dylan's face. The harmonica's final note hangs suspended in the air, refusing to end, as if time itself has frozen in the breath passing through those metal holes. 18,000 people hold their breath. Beneath the steel rafters of Philadelphia Spectrum Arena, between cigarette smoke and the scent of anticipation, something is about to break. Dylan stopped. Not just the song, he stopped time. The guitar still hangs around his neck, but his hands are trembling, his right hand slowly sliding away from the strings. His eyes are no longer in the stage lights. They're locked onto a silhouette in the crowd, 14th row, 7th seat from the right. 48-year-old Bob Dylan, on this October night in 1979, left Tangled Up in Blue half-finished and just stood there. The musicians backstage are looking at each other. Drummer Rob Stoner holds his sticks frozen in midair. Bassist Tony Brown mutters, "What's happening?" Dylan's lips are moving, but not into the microphone. He's talking to himself. Maybe the first rows can hear, but they don't understand. Just one word, Maggie, and the arena freezes, because Bob Dylan never stops. Bob Dylan never gets rattled on stage. Bob Dylan never looks back at his past in front of 18,000 people. But tonight is different. The spotlights dance across Dylan's face, beads of sweat glistening. His hair is a mess, eyes behind his glasses fogging up. He's breathing in, breathing out, but the microphone is silent. The crowd starts getting restless. Someone shouts, "Dylan, keep going!" Another whistles, but all Dylan hears is his own heartbeat and the gaze of the woman sitting in the 14th row. 45 years old, once blonde, but now with silver threads, the fire from years ago still burning in her eyes. Margaret Elizabeth Connors, the woman everyone called Maggie. The woman Dylan never wrote a song for, but maybe hid inside every song. The stage manager barks into his headset, "What are you doing? What's going on out there?" Dylan grabs the guitar neck with trembling hands. He leans into the microphone, his voice coming out hoarse. I think I need to take a break." The arena is ready to explode. Whistles, shouts, angry yells. But Dylan removes the guitar strap, slowly sets the guitar down on stage, takes the harmonica from around his neck, and does something unbelievable. He walks to the edge of the stage, heads toward the stairs, the spotlights following him. 18,000 people watch in shock. Bob Dylan is leaving the stage. Security guards are confused, not knowing what to do. Dylan passes the front rows, 2nd row, 3rd row, 9th row, and reaches the 14th row. The crowd parts for him like Moses parting the Red Sea. Dylan stands before the woman. Maggie rises, hands trembling as she brings them to her face. Dylan doesn't say a word, but there are 17 years in his eyes. 17 years of silence. 17 years of melodies. 17 years of rain. And throughout every corner of the arena, the same question circles. Who is this woman? 17 years ago, Bob Dylan wasn't Bob Dylan yet. In the narrow streets of Greenwich Village, between coffee smoke and dreams of revolution, 21-year-old Robert Allen Zimmerman carried a guitar. His hair was curly, his face boyish. His voice hadn't yet reached that famous rasp. But there was something in his eyes, a hunger, for words, for melodies, not for fame, but a hunger to exist. In the back room of Gerda's Folk City, Maggie Connors moved between tables. 28 years old, blonde hair, green eyes, a southern accent in her voice, ink stains on her hands. Was she a poet, a writer, or just a lost soul? In Greenwich Village, nobody asked. Everyone was running from something. When Dylan took the stage that evening, there were 6 people in the room. Maggie at her table with coffee, a cigarette, a notebook. When Dylan started playing Song to Woody, Maggie put down her pen. When "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right" came, she closed her eyes. And when Dylan finished his set, there was no applause. Just Maggie standing up, looking at Dylan. They talked that night. More precisely, Maggie talked. Dylan listened. Maggie had come from Mississippi, had run away from there, from her father, her mother, the town, from God. She wrote poetry, but nobody read it. Dylan wrote songs, but nobody listened. They were both invisible people. "How do you find your word?" Maggie asked, offering her cigarette to Dylan. Dylan took the cigarette, took a deep drag. I don't know. Sometimes they come in my dreams. Sometimes I hear something on the street, a word, a sound, keeps spinning in my head. How do you write? With pain. Maggie smiled, but her eyes didn't. If you pour the pain onto paper, it doesn't stay inside. After that night, they were always together. Maggie moved into Dylan's room, more precisely, half of Dylan's room, because the room was really a closet. Mornings, Maggie would write poetry. Dylan would play guitar. Afternoons, they'd wander Washington Square Park. Evenings, they'd play folk clubs. Maggie taught Dylan something: the silence behind words. In a song, what matters most isn't what you say, it's what you don't say, she'd tell him. People fill in the blanks. You just draw the map, let them find the way. In those days, Dylan knew nothing but felt everything. Maggie read him James Joyce, talked about Rimbaud. Dylan told her about Woody Guthrie, Hank Williams. They were both each other's teacher, both each other's student. But Maggie had a secret. In June of 1962, when Dylan signed with Columbia Records, Maggie disappeared. One morning, Dylan woke up and Maggie was gone. Her clothes were gone. Her poems were gone. Just a note remained on the pillow. Bob, you're going to fly. I've already fallen. Don't try to find me. Some people become music. Some are just noise. I'm noise. You're melody. Go and be music. When Dylan read that note, he didn't cry. Dylan never cried. But he wrote something on the back of that note, then put it in his wallet. Maggie, one day I'll find you, and that day I'll write you a real song. Dylan's career shot up like a rocket. In 1963, the freewheelin' Bob Dylan came out. Blowin' in the Wind shook the world. In 1964, The Times They Are A-Changin' became the anthem of protest. In 1965, he went electric. The folk world declared him an outlaw. The rock world made him a god. But in Dylan's head, there was always the same question. Where is Maggie? In every city, every concert, Dylan would scan the crowd. Maybe Maggie would be there. Maybe one day their eyes would meet. But they never did. Dylan was with other women, got married, had children, got divorced. But none of them were Maggie. Because Maggie had given him something no one else could. The feeling of being seen. When Maggie looked at Dylan before he was famous, she saw Dylan. Not Zimmerman, but Dylan. Not the songwriter, but the soul. In 1966, he had a motorcycle accident, hid away for years. Everyone thought Dylan had died, gone crazy, collapsed. But Dylan was just resting, remembering Maggie's words. If you pour the pain onto paper, it doesn't stay inside. Dylan poured his pain onto paper. He wrote Blood on the Tracks. He wrote Tangled Up in Blue. Maggie was in every line, but he never said her name. Because Maggie was right. What matters most is what you don't say. By 1979, Dylan was 48 years old. His hair had grayed, his voice had grown even more fractured. But he was still touring, still writing, still searching for Maggie. And then at Philadelphia Spectrum Arena, that night, 14th row, Maggie was there. Dylan stood before Maggie. 18,000 people in the arena held their breath. Security guards tried to approach Dylan, but the stage manager yelled over the radio, "Stop! Don't touch him!" Because everyone understood, this moment was sacred. Dylan's lips trembled. Maggie's eyes filled. Neither could speak. 17 years compressed into 17 seconds. Finally, Maggie spoke. Her voice so low only Dylan could hear. "Are you still writing songs?" Dylan nodded. "Are you still writing poetry?" Maggie smiled, but tears rolled down her cheeks. "No, I stopped writing." Dylan's face tensed. "Why?" "Because you wrote all my songs. I had nothing left to write." Dylan shook his head. "No, Maggie, I didn't write your songs. I just hummed your voice." Maggie started crying. Full, uncontrolled, beautiful crying. Dylan reached out, wiped the tears from Maggie's cheeks. And all 18,000 people in the arena felt the same thing at once. Love never dies. It just gets lost. But it can be found. Dylan whispered to Maggie, "Let me finish the concert tonight. Then we'll talk." Please don't leave. Maggie nodded. I won't leave. I've been trying not to go to the place I haven't gone for 17 years anyway. Dylan smiled. That famous Dylan smile, half melancholy, half mysterious. Then he turned, walked to the stage, climbed the stairs, picked up his guitar, leaned into the microphone. Sorry, folks. Sometimes the past waves at you, and if you don't wave back, it never lets you go. The crowd exploded. Applause, shouting, screaming. Dylan struck his guitar and continued Tangled Up in Blue from where he'd left off. But this time every word was different. Every note was dedicated to Maggie. And in the 14th row, Maggie sat crying, laughing, living. When the concert ended, Dylan didn't leave the stage. He leaned into the microphone and said, Tonight I want to tell you something special. I've written a lot of songs in my life, but I never wrote a song for one person because she taught me how songs are written. And tonight, 17 years later, I'm going to write the first song for her. Live. Here. Now. The arena fell into silence. Dylan picked up his guitar, closed his eyes, and found the song. The words started coming. She taught me how to see behind the words. She showed me how the broken sings like birds. I lost her in the city lights one June, but I've been singing her name beneath the moon. The song lasted 5 minutes. No repetition, no chorus, just Dylan, his guitar, and a poem sung to Maggie. Eyes watered in every corner of the arena. When the song ended, Dylan put down the guitar, took the microphone, and looked at Maggie. Maggie, this is your song. It always was. Maggie stood up, applauded, and Dylan applauded her. All 18,000 people in the arena stood up and applauded both Dylan and Maggie. Because that night they hadn't just come to a concert. They'd witnessed a love story. After the concert ended, Dylan and Maggie met backstage. They drank coffee, smoked cigarettes, talked. Maggie told him when she left Dylan in 1962, she'd learned she was pregnant. She didn't want to tell Dylan because his career was just beginning. When Maggie had a miscarriage, she returned to Mississippi, went back to her family, stopped writing. I saw you on television, Maggie said. I heard your songs. Every time I cried, because those songs were ours. You were mine. But I thought I didn't deserve to be yours. Dylan put his hand on Maggie's. You created me, Maggie. Before I was Dylan, you showed me Dylan. If you hadn't existed, I would have just remained Zimmerman. Maggie smiled. Maybe Zimmerman was a beautiful name too. Dylan laughed. No. Zimmerman was a kid. Dylan was a revolution. They both fell silent. Then Maggie asked, What happens now? Dylan thought. I don't know, but I know this. Tonight you gave me back something I'd been missing for 17 years. A closure, an opening, maybe both. Maggie nodded. I'm not young anymore, Bob. Neither are you. We're ghosts of the past. Ghosts live too, Dylan said. They just live differently. The next morning, Dylan and Maggie met for breakfast. Dylan asked Maggie, Where do you live now? Baltimore. I work at a library. Are you happy? Maggie paused. No, but I'm standing. That's something. Dylan smiled. Standing is everything. Days passed. Dylan's tour continued, but he stayed in touch with Maggie. Phone calls, letters, sometimes meetings in a city. They didn't start a romantic relationship because the past was clear. They were in love, but their time had passed. But they discovered something else. Friendship. Dylan encouraged Maggie to write again. Maggie inspired Dylan with new songs. They both awakened each other's creative spirits. In 1980, Dylan released the album Saved. Inside the album was a hidden track, Maggie's Echo. Dylan never played the song live but wrote in the album's liner notes, This song is for a friend. She taught me that it's not the words but the silences that speak. When Maggie got that album, she cried. Then she wrote her first poem in 20 years. The poem's title, The Man Who Saw Through the Crowd. Years passed. Dylan aged, Maggie aged. They saw each other occasionally, but it wasn't like before, because now they didn't need each other. They just understood each other. In 2010, Dylan was asked in an interview, Is there a song you never wrote but wanted to? Dylan smiled, that famous, enigmatic smile. Yes, a song for a woman, but I'm already writing it every day. You just don't notice. The journalist asked, Who is that woman? Dylan didn't answer. He just narrowed his eyes and said, Some stories exist not to be told. Some songs are written not to be sung. Some people come into your life not to be seen, but they change you, silently. When Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016, the world was shocked. A singer winning the Nobel? Dylan didn't attend the ceremony. Instead, he sent a speech. At the end of the speech, he said, "My songs aren't mine. They come from the streets, from dreams, from those I've loved, those I've lost. I feel like I'm just a channel. And if I'm receiving this prize, I want to share it with all those ghosts, especially one ghost. She taught me the music behind the words. I never said her name, but she knows, and that's enough." Maggie watched that speech on television, in her small house in Baltimore, alone sipping her coffee. She smiled and thought, "Dylan, you didn't say my name, but I heard myself in every song, and that's the most beautiful compliment." Life sometimes gives us second chances, but those chances don't always come the same way. Dylan and Maggie found each other but didn't get back together, because love isn't just being together. Love is sometimes mutual inspiration, sometimes it's understanding, sometimes it's just a look, a song, a poem. When Dylan saw Maggie through the crowd, what stopped time wasn't love. It was recognition. That moment was saying, "You saw me, I see you too." And maybe that's the deepest love. In a world where you're invisible, having someone see you. Dylan's songs changed the world, but Maggie changed Dylan. And Maggie's poems were never published, but they were hidden in every Dylan song. Sometimes losers win, sometimes winners lose. But the real victory is this: touching someone's life and leaving a permanent mark in their life. The story of Bob Dylan and Maggie Connors may not have been real, but it felt real, because behind every Bob Dylan song is a Maggie. Behind every great artist is an inspiration. Behind every legend is a truth. And that truth is this: music comes from people, but people come from each other. In 2019, Dylan turned 80 years old. One night he played at a small folk club in Los Angeles. A surprise show. Only 100 people in the room. At the end of the concert, Dylan leaned into the microphone and said, "Tonight I want to play you one last song. I never released this song, but I play it every day, just silently." And Dylan picked up his guitar, closed his eyes, and the song started coming. Maggie walks through the quiet rain. She carries all my joy and pain. I never wrote her name in lights, but she's the music in my nights. When the song ended, the room was silent. Then a woman stood up, 75 years old, silver hair, green eyes. Maggie Connors. Dylan smiled. Maggie smiled, and they both knew. Some stories never end. They just continue. Silently, beautifully, endlessly. True love isn't fame. It isn't renown. It isn't money. True love is someone hearing your silence. Anonymous, or maybe Bob Dylan, maybe Maggie, maybe both.